Thank you.
Okay, so Johan, I give you the floor and you tell me next slide. So please go ahead.
Yes, so as you said, thank you for being in this site event on mainstreaming the essential variables across uh, GEO. Next slide, please. So some of you you already know us as the voice that we were preaching about the essential variables in some geo sessions before. We did that on 2020. We did that on 2021, exploring what is done in geo and which were the opportunities to harmonize the essential variables around the work program. The focus was in making progress on individual program work program activities, but now we are seeing that the geo priorities require the integration across multiple disciplines, and we are seeing the possibility to moving towards an integrated approach. So, just for instance, the food, water, and energy nexus. The essential variables are being demonstrated and developed by many communities, and these work promise to help driving a more integrated paradigm. We are also seeing an increase in interest in the interest in mainstream streaming the essential variables concepts across the geo activities. So that's why we want to improve our collective capacity to address geopolicy priorities such as the sustainable development goals by using the essential variables. So, and to do that, we prepared a program that's very simple because this session is just a little bit less than an hour long. So, we will have three introductory presentations followed by uh, the activity of discussing how we could move forward a white paper to, uh, report or guide and inform the readers on consistently about this complex issue, and to present this in a way that we can all understand it. We will finalize by agreeing on the structure of the white paper and distributing the writing, because we would like to have this ready by March on 2022 and submit it to the to the program board in June 2022, ready for the work plan symposium. So let's not delay this any further, and I would like to present somebody that you all know. He is Anthony Lehman. He is an ecologist who works on species distribution, hydrology modeling, and ecosystem services assessment, as well as in the food, water, ecosystem nexus to address the sustainable development. Anthony has been the boss of at least some of us in this Era Planet Geoessential project that has demonstrated how we can use essential variables created using geo word processing workflows, and to assess some of the indicators and targets of the Sustainable Development Goals. So please, Anthony, present us the topic.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and sharing some of the outputs of our Essential project that took place in the last 4 years with Johan and many others. And in this framework, we were able to prepare a special issue on the essential variables that you might have seen, and to continue this work in coming up publications. We prepared this representation of essential variable as spheres to describe first the Earth systems, and we know the development of essential variables started from climate, but then was also used very much in biodiversity and water, and then more recently started also in the geosphere. And what we would like to see is to complete those description of essential variables and making available the data sources for them at various scales. And then also to see more happening on the socio-economical system side, where things have started in agriculture, in urban development, in mineral extractions, and so on and so forth. But we would like to see more happening here, so that together we manage to describe all the important spheres to report on and inform about the SDGs, for instance, and describe the full socio-ecological system at various scales. And by doing that, we also recognize that somehow we are informing with indicators the driver and pressure from the socio-economical side on the Earth systems, as well as the state of this system, which have benefit and impact on our society and trigger activities and responses. So we inform the so-called DPSIR information indicator system. So in GeoEssential, we were able to develop not only the concept of essential variables, but to demonstrate that it could be implemented through workflows. So one of them showcase was developed on land degradation, addressing Sustainable Goals 15.3. And by using from the socio-economical Earth observation data available, models that allow to prepare the essential variables that are needed to then describe indicator of land degradation for this SDG indicator. We had another example based on the nexus of water and agriculture across Europe to quantify monthly water stress levels across Europe using evapotranspiration data and anomalies and on a dynamic way, as you see in the map on the left, and then also presenting it, the output as understandable dashboards from complex data. And a third example comes from workflows on biodiversity and ecosystems, where at a finer scale, we address the need of data to define so-called green infrastructure, which are more and more being asked for by policy needs. And we looked at which essential variables, climate, biodiversity, agriculture data was needed to implement here green infrastructure in the Geneva region. So these examples show that it is feasible to implement workflows to address policy needs at various scales, finding the data into essential variable classes. Now we also need to clarify the criteria for selecting essential variable, and in the same special issue that we prepared, Stefano Nativi was proposing definition of what is important to take into account as essentiality, evolvability, ambiguity, and feasibility of these essential variables that should represent these complex socio-ecological systems that I presented to you, and also address the needs of policies, goals, and indicators. So that's where we stand pretty much in the development of ideas and trying to push forward for an integrated framework across GEO for essential variables. And we suggest to use the time we have here to work on a possible white paper and its structure and who wants to contribute to different parts of this white paper, where we want to have, you will see chapters. Maybe someone can share the link to the white paper as it stands, and so that you can have a look. And with the history of the evolution of EVs in GEO, and then the general framework that we propose here, if people agree it's the good way to present it, or maybe there is something else better to put forward. And then going into each sphere and looking, here we put numbers of the status of development, but see where we stand, see if there are research gaps, and and then showing the implementation of these workflows, and finalizing the gap analysis on essential variables, and to finally have a common definition on essential variable and their characteristics. So defining the road forward for GEO. So thank you for your attention. It was a quick run through the output of this GEO Essential project, where we have many publications. And I give back the floor to Johan for the next speaker.
Yes, thank you, Anthony, for setting the scene on this topic, and we want to emphasize on the need for integration. So we would like to know more about the Nexus approach in the Sustainable Development Goals and so on. And we are pleased to have here Sven. I believe he is the one that is going to do the presentation also with Ian. They, Sven in particular, joined Vito Remote Sensing Unit, and he is an expert in global agriculture monitoring and mapping with precision farming, sorry, and using Copernicus Earth observation. And he's now trying to find more nexus, more relations between the sustainable agriculture and food security, and so on. Active member of the GeoGlam. So please, let's do that.
Okay, so it's actually Ian that's going to do the talking,
Yeah.
unless Sven really wants to jump in.
And Ian is also a good, a well-known person in the Geo Global Agriculture Monitoring, the GeoGlam flagship initiative, and we are pleased to have you here. So please go ahead.
Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, no problem at all. It seems today is integration day for me, and I'm the integration guy. So if anybody who was at the Anchor Session 1, I apologize for the duplication, but the issues are the same. Hopefully I'm going to come at it from a slightly different angle. The essential variables, when we're talking about integration and the need to integrate across our communities, at least in GeoGlam, we've thought that the essential variables is a key way to drive that integration at the technical level. And I think Anthony's presentation demonstrated some of the case studies that really shows how that is possible, where you can bring information across science domains together in a coherent way. So with all that said, I'm going to be very brief, but we're obviously dealing with a very complex policy environment. Information produced by GEO community we know can help many of the targets. However, almost all targets and goals require information that are integrated. And consequently, we really need a common approach across our communities to enable integration information sharing. Next slide. So this actually came from Connecting GEO H2020 project. I love this because it's just a little piece of the picture of variables and indicators for the SDGs. Really nice piece of work, but it just demonstrates the complexity of the policy to science community we're dealing with. Now, if you hit the next slide, you see just one indicator, SDG 241, a few of the essential variables in our realm, the essential agricultural variables that feed into that. And now we know these variables also support many other SDGs, as well as the adaptation mitigation work in climate and so on. So how do we, as one community, we can't be chasing all these indicators at the same time. We need a way to sit back and develop the information that we can bring forward to share with other communities, communicate it in hopefully a common way, so that enhances the integration in the end. As I say here, this is just one indicator for one flagship. How can we work across programs? Next slide, please. So as I said earlier today, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And we know this in GeoGlam, we know this in all of our initiatives. I think that's why we come together in these initiatives to collaborate, get benefit from that collaboration. And we intuitively see the benefits of this work from the program activities. Current initiatives rarely ever work across disciplines though. And that's really the problem when we talk about the nexus and beyond. If we're working in stovepipes, we're just not going to get it done. And considering the timeline on climate, the timeline on SDGs and so on, we really have to accelerate action, change the paradigm. So this suggests there is potential to move beyond the stovepipe and develop integrated solutions. A common approach to essential variables may provide one way to enhance integration across the work plan. And so I'm very excited about this white paper. It gives us a chance, at least for us, the first time to sit down with the rest of the community and discuss this. And this is just to, I used this in the Nexus, this discussion this summer, but the check marks are areas where our essential agricultural variables overlap with essential variables from other communities, in this case, GeoGlows on water and ECVs, the climate variables, another. We also looked very closely at the EVBs or EBVs, sorry, when we developed our approaches, so that we're trying to adopt similar approaches to these other communities. And we think that the essential variables can really be a common language that we all share. And because of that, it makes it a useful communication device. And it allows us not only to communicate between the science domains, but also communicate to the policymakers and so on better, and from the GEO initiatives, and develop outputs in a way that supports coordination and integration across science domains. Next slide. And this is also from Anthony. I borrowed his essential variable balls. Anyways, I like this one because it shows the kind of where we are, the current state, different levels of work in progress. Where we want to get to is more aligned, more commonality, to be able to better describe that social economic or social ecological Earth system better together as an integrated community. And I think that's all I have. Yeah, so that's it. Just want to express GeoGlam's real excitement to move this forward. It's time to really get some progress going, and I think the white paper will be a good way to get that started. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm pretty sure that the next speaker is Gregory Giuliani, because it says that in the slide. He is going to present on remote sensing to support artisanal and small-scale gold mining policy development. And he has a unique position in between the University of Geneva, the United Nations Environmental Program, the UNEP, and also being the head of the Digital Earth Unit and the Swiss Data Cube project leader. So tell us about where we can find gold in making better policy.
Yeah, thank you, Johan. Good day, good evening to all. That's a great pleasure to be here today. I hope you are able to see my screen.
Yes.
So I will quickly show you what we have done, also in the frame of the GEO Essential project, together with my colleague Pierre Lacroix and other colleagues from the University of Geneva and UNEP Grid, on trying to define also some essential variables, but for a specific topic on the extractive industry, and especially targeting and applying this concept of essential variable for supporting the monitoring of small scale and artisanal gold mining, trying to support the policy development and implementation. So just to say that the initial work that we have done has been reported in this publication you're seeing on the screen. So trying to define the framework of defining essential variables for monitoring the impact of the exploitation of mineral resources across the world. So we use a similar approach as the approach on the EBVs, also on the essential biodiversity variables, trying to define groups, then categories, and then specific variables. So you see that there are obviously some overlaps also with other domains. So this will also pose the question, what's the question for defining specific essential variables that maybe are targeting different needs. So this is the framework we were proposing, and we've done also the exercise to link it with the SDG to see how these extractive essential variables can be useful for monitoring or contributing to the monitoring of some of the SDG, like the SDG 15.3.1 on land degradation. And what we have done, so at the United Nations Environment Programme, so at the Great Geneva, we've been approached by the Minamata Convention, so the Convention on Mercury. And recently, well, a couple of months ago, they were asking us to develop a technical guidance document on how countries can benefit from the use of the remote sensing and more generally the use of Earth observation technologies for monitoring the ASGM activities. So we've done that work. So currently we are preparing a scientific publication on that. So we have a full report that has been submitted recently to the Minamata Convention Secretariat, and we've done a lot of work exploring all the potentialities of the use of the remote sensing for monitoring the SGM activities, and we use the concept of essential variables and apply them to support the policy recommendation. So just we had a couple of key findings. So they are listed there. I will not go across all of them, but we identify some key benefits in terms of remote sensing technologies. They are quite well known. There are no big surprises on that. We also identify some limitations that are usually not too much technical, but more on the, let's say, human and social side. And finally, we also identify technical limitation that we apply in the annex document of the report. So we develop also some key recommendation. We had 4 case studies in different countries, trying to explore different technologies, but also applying to different topics for monitoring land cover changes, water turbidity monitoring related to mining activities in Congo and in Peru and in Colombia. And we, at the end of the report, we have some recommendation for different typologies of users. So not only researchers, but also international organizations and funders, data and software providers, as well as government official and policymakers in ASGM countries. So we really help them to build on that, to apply these technologies. And you see these are just examples based on the concept of essential extractive essential variables to support policy making, and the link with also social activities and what is occurring on the ground. So that's it for me. I think we will have plenty of time to discuss it along with the application or this kind of application of essential variables within the white paper. And thank you for your attention.
And with that, I believe we are entering in the second part of the session, that it's the white paper itself. So I would like to recommend Anthony to
I'm preparing
share the
it.
structure of the paper.
So you have a link also in the chat to access your own kind of copy of the document. I will make it bigger for you here, hopefully.
This is just what we were discussing, and on the second page, you will find the structure. So this is just a cover page helping us on the situation of the context of the white paper, or the white paper starts here. And we are seeing, let's call it an historical approach in the white paper, where we are reviewing the history of the essential variables, and then we are trying to create this framework that situates each of the spheres in a context. It also set up this organization where we are inspired in this idea of a more physical essential variables that represent the state of the things, while we see from the more socioeconomic part some other spheres that could be drivers and pressures into the actual earth system, and those pressures has impacts and responses into the socio-economical part also. So that is some kind of a conclusion that tries to unify the essential variable model. Then I believe the paper continues with the
Johan,
yes.
should we just go through the? I don't know if people have access really to the document. I think so, but just to give just the structure first, and then we can go back in some parts and see
Agreed.
who
Yes.
want to.
Exactly. So I would like to see the section number 3, where we
Right.
see the status of the essential variables. So this is kind of a revision of the spheres, and we have them enumerated here. And of course, we will need experts on each and every of those spheres to actually complete a good paper about that. Then we could have a summary of the research gaps that we might know, and eventually uh, we could review the approaches on integration and the implementation of indicators answering policy needs. That could be based on examples that we know, on collection of best practices that we have been able to collect. Then we will be in the gap analysis, able to do gap analysis, because we will know the status, so we will indirectly see some blanks here and there. And the proposal is to end with a common definition of essential variables. And finally, and I believe that's the most important part of the white paper, it sets up a roadmap on how to make progress in the essential variables in general, and then how GEO/GEOs could help us in terms of making essential variables queryable in the portal, or even exposing some of those workflows to transform essential variables into policy indicators and things like that. So that's one possible structure. Uh, we could discuss about this structure. We could be kind of surprised, for instance, that the common definition of essential variables goes into the almost the end of the white paper, like a conclusion. There could be also another approach, starting by the actual concept of the essential variables, and then presenting uh, presenting the gaps we believe they are, and the solutions, and finally having some kind of an annex reviewing the status of the different spheres. That could be exactly the other way around. So, well, I pop that to you, if even if that's a contradiction with the Anthony first proposal, just to challenge a little bit the structure and see what do you see about that.
Yeah, of course, we will not either solve everything tonight. We try to set the scene and then come up with a working group to that want to contribute, and then we can still modify the structure later. There are already good comments in the chat. Thank you for
Yeah,
those
great.
contributing. And so the
One of
idea is that we
yeah.
will try to write some of them already in the structure, but we keep all your comments for sure. So I think one important comment is for who we want
Agreed.
to, yeah, go ahead.
That's Carolina writing who is the audience of the white paper, and if this is
Yeah.
the program board, or they are the scientists that should measure the variables that will become essential, or are the policymakers the ones that are target from the white paper. So this is maybe something that we need to clarify first, and then trying to guess what they will need to read. We could put that part first to captivate their interest, maybe. So what's your take on that, Anthony? Who is the actual target?
Well, for me, first was the GEO community to kind of agree on a way forward, because as we have discussed, this has evolved kind of separately in the different domains, and they I've seen some kind of common understanding of what are essential variables would be helpful. And then also encouraging those spheres that haven't started to kind of define and especially make available data sources for each of the essential variables to do so. I think everybody will be really winning if the GEO community managed to push forward this concept together. So I'm not sure if that answering, Carolina, if you want to take the floor and to discuss this issue. I think it's an important one. Or are we answering your concern like this?
Are you able to?
I am trying to see if
to make them speakers to actually have a voice.
Oh yeah, I should be able to show on stage. Here she comes.
Okay. So I believe the outcome of the white paper is in this roadmap. No, trying to answer the final comment of Carolina. What do you expect from the white paper to do?
Sorry.
Okay, Carolina is now among us.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Loud and clear.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for the opportunity to comment. Yes, I think it's important to, I guess, start the conversation by setting the context, and also given that you've initiated this process, I guess you have very specific expectations of what you wish the white paper to do and what the community should do also in response to your invitation to contribute to it. So I'm wondering if, as part of the question regarding the expectations of the outcomes of the white paper, you can perhaps outline what your own expectations are. You're right, Anthony, that the community, I guess, in very fragmented initiatives around essential variables, but I guess that's because each one understands essential variables to fulfill a specific function within the given activity. So I wonder if this is a community activity need to understand what the landscape is across the work program and how EVs are being used, and what would you hope to get from that? Yes.
Yeah,
sorry,
what we hope to get from them is a contribution and participation to the white paper, so that instead of us describing where we stand in these different spheres, this is expert from the field that are doing it. And the challenge, I mean, if we were continuing to work domain per domain, then everybody can continue doing their essential variables the way they like. But if we pretend, as it is the case during this GEO meeting, that we need more integration to address the big complex challenges, then it's important that we agree on this kind of common language that was kind of put forward by Jan. Is a common language that would then allow everyone to be able more easily to find in another domain, which is not his own, what are the essential variables and what are the data sources associated to it to develop complex analysis. So I don't know if it's answering your question. So I see that, yeah.
Yeah, Anthony, Evangelo says that it should also target data providers and people who is competent and for systematized long-term sustainability and quality assurance, that I think that it also links to what was saying Bagher Bayat, that it says that essential variables should also include validation aspects, operational validation of satellite derived. Well, everything, all this is related on data providers and who's providing.
Mhm.
So just give this to the floor.
Okay, I'm starting to type things in as we talk. For whom that will be important to define here in the introduction. The data validation quality, where would we put that as a specific chapter?
There could be a general discussion on fair essential variables. So how to make the essential variables findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. The reusable is the workflows. The fair is the discoverability in the GEO portal, and data quality is among that in the interoperability part of the fair word, I suppose. But that will help us to separate the technical issues from the more conceptual issues that we have now in the current chapter 8 that you are showing here.
All right, somehow I don't see. Yeah, you still see my screen, right?
Yes, we are
Mhm.
seeing you typing.
Yeah, I'm trying, but I lost the menu with the buttons and everything somehow as I'm sharing the screen. So I'm reduced capacity to take notes. But yeah, that for the moment I put it here, and also including data quality and all the FAIR principle and. So for whom, yeah, we also addressing the needs of data provider. Yeah, thanks, Gregory, for helping him.
That's partially addressing the needs of data providers and balancing them with the policymaker needs is this whole topic about bottom up and top down definition of essential variables that we discussed in Connecting Geo from, I don't know, 5 years or even more. So that's something that we could also add here, trying to find a balance between the data providers' interests and the policymakers' needs.
Yeah. So is there any other comments that you see in the chat that we can integrate right now, knowing that
Bagher Bayat said that validation can go to gap section, maybe the validation part of essential variables. Then Miguel Fernandez said that what Joan was saying about fair essential variables, maybe it could be interesting to add a section on standards and metadata standards to address these issues.
Okay, that was added here potentially. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and George Huffman from GeoGlows said that the essential water variables were developed to focus agency attention on maintaining and supporting the necessary observation and processing. This is regarding the target audience.
Yeah, I imagine that each domain will have slightly different aim and scope in why they started developing it and how. But potentially together we'll come up with a common definition at the end and objective together. And I guess, integration should be really a common definition. The kind of common objective that we should reach together if we have if we manage to improve the use of the concept.
And, Anthony,
Yes.
if I may, also I think something that we clearly need also to solve, or at least come up with an idea on how to solve this issue, is about one essential variable being in different domain. For example, I took the simple example of land cover, that is basically an ECV, but also an EBV, but also an essential extractive variables. So what is it at the end? Is it a super essential variable or something like this? So that's also something that we need at one stage consider, I guess.
This is what we looked at in the gap analysis as redundancy and synonyms. And yeah, I guess it makes sense that some variables are being used and reused in different frameworks. But as long as we recognize they are similar and we can map synonyms, that could be okay.
Well, I believe that precisely the overlaps demonstrate that this framework is capable of allowing integration and cross-disciplinary. So I believe we have to recognize the good side of it, but also there is, of course, the management part of it. Who is managing each spheres, and when there is an overlap, then I mean, who is responsible for that? And of course, that might create problems, but I don't see that as a bad thing.
No, that's super into all. That shows that this is probably something essential at the end, really essential.
Yeah.
I think that's partially what we did in the GeoGlam community already, because there's a number of specific agricultural EAVs, but there's also a number of meteo information that is considered as also EAVs for agriculture. But we looked at how they were defined in the other spheres, how they were used, and if they if they could be translated directly to the EAVs, we use the definitions of the other spheres and we leave them in the other spheres and we interact with those spheres. I think that's the most straightforward way to handle it, except if one EAV is used a bit differently in one sphere or another, you might need to adapt definition. In some cases that might be necessary, but I think in a lot of cases that won't be necessary.
Right. Maybe just to clarify here on taking the stock on what's happening in the main topics linked to GEO and which we inspire ourselves for developing the spheres. We put some names here, which are the people that contributed in previous discussions. Some of them are confirmed their interest to continue. Others we just put them there because they were part of the discussion earlier. But this is still completely open, and if you are an expert in one of these domains and wants to contribute, you are most welcome for that part as well as for taking the lead on some other parts as the validation as it was proposed, or some other topic in the white paper. At the same time, we want to have this is already a quite long document, but I think if we manage to correctly share the effort, our aim is to have it ready by next spring, March or so. So we need people that are willing to contribute in the following months and have a few meetings still, and then write their parts.
Yeah, and in particular, there is an intervention on the chat window at the very beginning of the session, or almost at the beginning of the session, to consider. Daniel Ehrlich is saying to consider the societal variables generated by the Human Planet Initiative. This is one of the things that doesn't have responsible at this moment, I believe, in our list of.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Daniel would like to come on the floor to
I think that if you raise hands, then you can enter the floor, or maybe not.
I invited him. Let's see if he.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you for considering my comments. Yeah, we will be happy to contribute and explain what we are doing with the societal variables. So yeah, I will be happy to help out if I can and work with you. Thanks.
Yeah, but in a way we present it right now with the spheres. Where would you see it fitting? Could it be part of the social economical systems as another bubble, or do you see it?
But I think Yvette made the comment that it is what's the difference between societal and socioeconomic. I mean, I can easily fit into the social economic bubble.
Mm-hmm.
And later I can explain you why we're using societal instead of socioeconomic. But yes,
Right.
that would be my bubble.
But right now, I guess it would be socioeconomic / societal. We will put it like this for now, right?
Yeah, fine.
And we could put Ehrlich
Yes.
right here, if I manage.
And maybe most of my contribution would come from the two papers that I have listed in the chat.
Yeah, the idea is with this white paper is not necessarily to do rocket science and invent completely new things, but rather take stock of what has been done by different experts and have a common agreement.
Yeah, excellent, thank you.
Thanks. So for the others that see the names and everything, we will have the chat. We'll keep a look on it and review the sessions and try to write down everything that was said. But yeah, if you have interest in contributing, please contact us. Me or Johan, I think, would be best. And then we'll organize the work and distribute it and have another session like this.
Yes. So I believe we are on the final minutes of the session here. If you take a look at the agenda, it guarantees a 10 minutes break in between sessions. So maybe it's good that we just review the actual our own roadmap. Let's call it that way. We say that we are targeting March 2022. That's because we would like to be prepared for the June GEO program board and work plan symposium. So this is what we have to do. It seems a long way, but we are going to be there in no time. So it's better that we start working already on this and get prepared. And what we really need is to consolidate this roadmap, because this is what I would like to see in the white paper. Make it not only that this is not a thing that is static, but a thing that is proposing a way forward. And I believe that's really important. And the way forward should be in terms of filling the gaps. It should be in terms of what we call it the FAIR and the data management principles part, so a little bit more technological, but also on pushing for this cross-disciplinary somehow. So and this, I believe, well, it's in the last part, the action 5, no, building interdisciplinary workflows, but it's more than workflows, I suppose. It's well, I don't know exactly what it is, because I have the feeling that some of the workflows we already know them and could be part of the white paper, the way they are presented. So how to generalize the idea of workflows is what probably would need to be in the next steps and in the roadmap. Okay, so I would like that Anthony does final remarks, and with that, I believe we can conclude the session.
Yeah, you're a bit early. This is my final remark. We still have a good 5 minutes to go, and there might be other. I see in the chat that George Huffman, who was also part of previous discussion, was also explaining that even behind one EV classes such as precipitation, that there are different types of data sets. So I don't know if George would like to also potentially take the floor and see how his contribution could be in the where is he now? Yeah, here he is. So I invite him. We'll see if he's still around. But tell us more about how maybe the climate experts who started all this see such an effort.
So this is George. I will be brief because we're at the end. So I have been leading essential water variables, and one of the key factors here is that the climate people get very excited about owning precipitation, which of course they don't. And the problem is that I have a 20-year data set, but if someone does a climate analysis, what they're going to find is when the different satellites pop in and out of this data set, because this data set is intended to give you the best answer at each time step, but it's not homogeneous. We try, but that's not the most important thing. The way we do the GPCP is we throw out most of the data, and then we homogenize everything else like crazy that's left. So I think we will have to have discussions, not just for precipitation, about what the right analysis scheme is that optimizes the information. They started this problem that we will need curation. We have not heard, but
clearly behind one essential variable such as precipitation, there might be different data sources for different purposes.
yes.
And this is how, I think it's in our GeoEssential project, the way we kind of managed that was through the definition of workflows. As long as you don't know why you are using a data for, you don't really know which data sources to select, but knowing that the temperature is an essential thing to measure and monitor through times, there might be different ways of doing it and for different purposes, and that's the way I see it.
Yeah. So we need some curation going on here, so that if you, depending on what the application is, and that means there will be more than one data set, and we have to explain. I mean, the full list of data sets for precipitation, which is relatively advanced, runs to 4 pages. And so clearly not all of them are created equal, but even within those, there's several friendly competitors at the climate scale and at the sub-hourly scale.
Okay, thank you for your input, and we hope to see you involved in this effort, right? Okay, great.
I'm excited. I think this is, when I heard about this group, I was hoping it would happen, but I didn't, I can't lead it.
Well, that's good to hear, because we had some other kind of feedback for a long time in trying to push this idea forward. So it's good to see that there are motivated people I see in the chat as well. So thanks. And maybe also from just if we have a little bit of time to make people contribute, I see that the urban variables who was with us.
Evangelos.
There was Evangelos and Stelios, I think, or who was it? Orestes. Orestes, is he still with us? Or Evangelos? I see Evangelos, and he's maybe I invite Evangelos. I don't see. Sorry. Evangelos, you are on stage to tell us more about the essential urban variables. How do you see it?
Well, we started this exercise within the SMERGE project, adopting the methodology you had from the essential variables. So there are very many interesting things. I mean, the rationale behind the argument is something like the fourth engagement priority, that, okay, we have climate change, we have disaster risk reduction, we have the SDGs, but when things go to the cities, the complexity and the needs are so much different that you need a special approach, like what Orestes said before, the resolution maybe, temporal or spatial. So maybe these aspects are aspects that need, that it's useful to be mentioned in such a work. So we would be more than glad with the Orestes and colleagues to contribute to this knowledge.
So there would be Orestes, that's the way it's spelled. So yeah,
yeah, it's Orestes.
As well.
Orestes. The answer.
Orestes.
Orestes.
Yeah, well, through that we
Oh,
could.
yeah.
So
Okay,
having
thank
a
you.
discussion of on scales, temporal scales, spatial scales, that could be something that could help us focus.
Yeah, and many other things, like columnar versus surface, because many ECVs, for example, are similar to what an air quality approach would need in cities, but then it's not the columnar, it is the surface concentration that we need. So there are many, many aspects that can be uncovered behind and help the discussions.
Okay, so thank you very much. And maybe in order to finish, if you know anyone from the kind of infrastructure and transport domain that could be developing indicators, but not necessarily link or data sources for these this topic, but never really put it in the framework of essential transport or infrastructure variables, could be interesting to reach out to those people. Otherwise, yeah, I would like to thank you for joining and for your enthusiastic feedbacks, which is motivating really for the group. And we'll analyze all these outputs and try to come up with a new version of the white paper and contact you again to see who can contribute how and when. So from my side, that's it. And I thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.